Welcome! Thank you for joining me. Grey Board Gamer here with another series of playthrough videos. This time I'm playing Legends of Andor. Let's crack this box open and get it set up. Here we have the board. It has a very large footprint. I can't even fit the whole thing into frame, even zoomed all the way out. So I'll do my best to zoom in during the game to highlight things. We also have the player boards, which are off screen down below, and the equipment board that's off screen to the left. I've already completed the introductory adventure, which I didn't want to go through because it's basically the heroes showing up and arriving to the castle, defending the castle from monsters, and eventually, to be successful, we had to deliver a letter to the allies here. So we're not going to go through the introductory adventure. I'm going to go into the second part, or what they call the legends. I'm going to go into the second legend of Andor to show you the gameplay through that. And during this setup, I'll introduce you to the different components in the game, maybe highlight a couple of the rules real quick. But as always, I'll go over the rules throughout the gameplay and as the gameplay progresses. But to start the setup, the game comes with a checklist that you do at the beginning of every legend, except Legend 1, which again is the introductory. First thing we're going to do is each player chooses a hero board with a corresponding hero figure, gets 2 wooden discs, 1 wooden cube, and the dice in that hero's color. This is our first hero, the first of 4, and it's Thorn, the warrior from Rightland. Now each hero starts with 7 willpower that's marked by these 3 rows here, and the wooden disc shows that he has 7 currently. And then each character starts the game with 1 strength point. And each character comes with their own set of colored dice. Now he comes with 4 because that's the maximum that he can roll at one time. And depending on what his willpower is, that'll determine if he's going to roll 2, 3, or 4 dice. And then his special ability, which will make more sense once the gameplay starts, is he gets 5 willpower points instead of 3 when he empties a well. And I'll explain what wells are when we get to that point. Next we have Chada. She's an archer from the Watchful Woods. And again, she'll start with 7 willpower and start the game with 1 strength. And she has 5 dice. Again, depending on her willpower, she rolls 3, 4, or 5. And her special ability is, during each battle round, Chada rolls her dice 1 at a time, then decides when to stop rolling, and only her final roll counts. Also, she can attack a creature in adjacent space. So unlike Thorn, she rolls her dice 1 at a time. He rolls all of his at once. And there's a reason that this can be an advantage or a disadvantage, and you'll see that through the gameplay. And then also, she doesn't have to be on the same space as a creature. She just has to be in one of the adjacent spaces to perform an attack. Next we have Iara, Wizard from the North. She'll start out with 7 willpower and 1 strength. She also has only 1 die. But with her special ability, which is each battle round, Iara can turn her rolled die onto its opposite side immediately after rolling. And they give an example there, that if she rolls a 1, and then she can immediately turn it to the opposite side, which would turn that roll into a 6. When fighting with other heroes in a collective battle, she can also apply this ability to another hero's roll instead of her own. It's a very, very useful ability. And you also might be able to see that there is a little box around her head and a circle around her arm, and then we have little boxes here. That's space for if she buys or finds a helm, a shield, a bow, or even a falcon, and I'll go over those when I show you the equipment board. And then spaces for items that she would find along the way. And then here's a spot just to put your coins. Now this is not, as you can see, limited. It's for any quantity. It's just giving you a spot on the player board to put them. And last but not least, our final adventurer, Crom. He's a dwarf from the deep mines. He'll start with 7 and 1 also. And his special ability is he can buy strength points at the dwarf mine for 1 gold instead of 2. Now that, let me show you. I'll show you that on the main board, but I also wanted to show you that the back of each player board has the opposite gender. Now I just chose to play with 2 men and 2 women, but every player board is the same except for the name and the photo, or the illustration, not the photo. So the game can be played with the characters being either male or female, and then each character also comes with standees that are male and or female. Here's the equipment board that'll be off to the left side of the main board. And this merchant symbol here, you'll see that's in 3 places on the main board, and those are the places where the merchant is at. And as it says, you can purchase strength points or these articles for 2 gold each. The witch and the brew over here, that does not apply to the merchant, only this section over here. And we have wine skins that can give you additional moves, shields that can block wounds or block bad effects on event cards, the falcon, which will allow you to distribute items, whether it's articles, gold, or gemstones amongst players, the bow, which will allow you to make your attacks even if you're in an adjacent space but not in the space, or you could be in the space that the monster is, but this allows you to make attacks from the adjacent space. The telescope allows you to uncover tokens that are in adjacent spaces to the one you're at. And then the helm, which during battle, when you roll the dice, any dice that are the same can be totaled up instead of taking the highest value. And again, a lot of that doesn't make sense right now because I haven't done any gameplay, but I just wanted to do a quick overview. And again, I'll go over the rules for these items if I get any of them during the game to make sure everything's clear. And then the witch over here, that'll come up only after the witch is found, which is going to happen, hopefully, in the second legend that I'm going to do a playthrough of, and then I'll explain that side of the board when that happens. And here we have the event deck. It has events that can occur throughout the game. Give that a quick shuffle. I already shuffled it up a lot, but since I just looked at the back, the last card. And it will be placed here next to the sunrise box. Next we have these fog tokens that'll be placed out on the board that have different items on the back side. I'm going to mix these up and place them out on the game board. You might be able to see that a lot of the spaces that border the river and the waterway here have little circles that show where the fog tokens will go. I'll go ahead and shuffle these up and put them in place. Now you can see that all the fog tokens are in place along the north part of the river that runs kind of east-west and turns a little bit to the north. Now those fog tokens, if I enter an area and stop my movement on one of the sections that has the fog token, then the token gets turned over, revealed, and whatever is on the other side will be taken into account. That's where the telescope can come in handy, because you can move along the edges and reveal what's under them without them activating to give you a better idea of what's there. And also that's where we're going to be hunting for the witch. Then we have the 4 colored discs that represent our players, and we'll start out by putting them here in the sunrise box at the beginning of the game. And then we also have these well tokens, as you can see, and then on the opposite side, when it's been used, it's just grayed out. And these, if you are in a space with those, you can activate and draw from the well to get 3 willpower. And there are 4 spaces on the board that have hexagons on them to place the well tokens. The 4 wells are in place. There's one over here by the castle, one down here in the southwest. You'll see one up there in the forest, and then there's one that's right over here next to the mountains. I turned the camera a little bit to the right so you can see the bottom of the narration track over here. Then we have the narrator token that begins the game in space A of the narration track. And there are things that happen throughout the game, whether it's defeating monsters or another day, that's going to make that move along this track. And in order to succeed and win the game, or at least the legend, you have to get everything accomplished before it reaches that top spot at letter N. Down here at the bottom middle part of the board, I've zoomed into the monster track. And what that is it shows you the strength of each monster, which is this white number, or their strength points, and then the reward that's available if you defeat them. And whenever you fight a particular monster, you put the cube in the spot just so you know which monster you're dealing with, and then their health is tracked down here, and the starting health for each type of monster is highlighted. So for the gores, they only have 4 health, and if they get down to 0, of course they're defeated. And this also shows you how many or which kind of dice they use during their combat. And again, this will be much better highlighted and much better explained throughout the course of the game. The game is set up for the most part. I think we have everything in place. And here is the beginning of Legend 2. And then you have the stack, the deck, and then the final card at N. And instead of having a instruction booklet or a story booklet or something like that, a scenario book, everything that you need to know besides the initial basic setup that's handled by the checklist will be on the back of each of these cards, and you read them in order and they'll tell you when it's time to go to the next one. So we'll start going over those right now. This is the back side of card A1 in Legend 2, and we'll go over a couple of the rules real quick. A hero has to choose. Fighting costs 1 hour, moving costs 1 hour, and that's on the time track that you see way up here at the top of the board. And that'll get explained too as I do the gameplay. So you have to either move or fight. You can't move to a spot and start a fight. You can move to a spot, and then when it's your turn again, then you can start your fight. And there are free actions that don't cost any amount of hours on the time track. Activating a fog token, emptying a well, picking up gold, or depositing gold or gemstones or articles from or onto a space. Trade or giving gold or gemstones or articles with another hero on the same space, using articles, which are the items you can buy on the equipment board from the merchants, and then buying articles or strength points from the merchants. None of these actions cost any hours on the time track. They can even be carried out when it's not the hero's turn. A hero cannot perform them, however, if they've already ended their day, and you'll see when that happens. Right now, we're just going to move on to the second card. And you've probably already noticed that some of the cards in the legend have 2 versions, one with a green background and the other with a normal background. And let me show you that right here. This is a card with a normal background. This is a card with a green background. And I'm going to paraphrase instead of reading that whole card. It basically says that the ones with the green background are a little bit easier than the ones with the normal background. For this playthrough, I'm going to use the cards with the green background. And that only replaces 3 cards in this deck during gameplay. And I've looked at the difference between the normal and what they call the easy, which is what I'm using. And it's a little bit of a difference. It's not a major difference, but it's enough that I hope that I'll be able to show you more gameplay whether I succeed or not. Because the game's pretty difficult as it is. So I'm going to make it a little bit easier to make sure I can get through a lot of the mechanics and a lot of the gameplay. And if I end up finishing the legend on a positive note, great. If not, at least I'll get to show you as much of the gameplay as possible on this playthrough. The next card, A3. Start by carrying out the instructions on the checklist card. That we've already done. Then get the following materials ready and arrange them next to the game board. The witch, the ruined stone cards, the witch figure, the horseman figure, the tower, the medicinal herb. I have all those items off to the side of the board. I've already put the 6 rune stones face down and mixed them up. Finally, place stars on letters C, G, and N on the legend track. And these are the star tokens. And we're going to place these on C, G, and N on the legend track. And these are reminders that those parts of the game track, when you land on them, there's going to be a corresponding card that will need to be read. A gloomy mood has fallen upon the people. Rumors are making the rounds that Skrulls have set up a stronghold in some undisclosed location. The heroes have scattered themselves across the entire land in search of this location. The defense of the castle is in their hands alone. Place your heroes on spaces corresponding to their rank numbers, 7, 14, 25, and 34. Let me go ahead and show you the standees. First we'll start with our dwarf. Then on the back side it actually has the back of the character. And he's going to start on space 7. It may be hard to see the numbers from this wide shot, but 7 is up here next to the castle. Then we have Thorn. And he begins on space 14. Then we have Chada. And she begins on space 25. And last we have Ayara, our wizard. And she begins on space 34. Just right there. Next, we'll place Gores on spaces 8, 20, 21, 26, 48. And these are the Gores. And there's going to be 5 of them out when we start the game on space 8, 20, and 21. There's 20, 21, 26, which is down here. It's off to the side here, you can't see it. And 48. 48, I can't remember where 48 is. It's just on the other side of the bridge there. And then we have a Skrull, which is the more difficult version of the beginning monsters. And this one Skrull begins on 19. Many farmers have asked for help and are seeking shelter behind the high walls of Reichberg Castle. Place 1 farmer token on each of spaces 24 and 36. I'll take 2 farmer tokens. I'll take 1 male and 1 female. And on the back you'll see their shields. And I'll explain that when the time comes. That's 24. 24 is right here. And the other one was 36. Right there. Now these farmers, the player can move on to a space with them and then bring them with them. And the goal is to get them back to the castle. If you get them back to the castle, you can flip their token over and they'll represent another shield. And I'll zoom in up here on the castle to show you exactly what I'm talking about. You can see those gold shields that are up here next to the castle. And we're doing this as a 4-player game, so there's only one shield. What those represent is if a monster of any type makes it into the castle space, when it makes it into the castle space, it goes onto the shield. If at any time a monster enters the castle and there's not an empty space or another shield to put them on, then the legend prematurely ends, it's over, the players lose. And that's where these farmers come into play. If I can get it to focus. If you successfully bring them into the castle, you flip them over and it gives you an additional space for a monster to go on to. Again, I've shifted the camera over to the left a little bit so we can see the left side of the board, especially since we have characters and a gore down here. There's not a lot going on this far right side right now. Again, I'll be moving the camera a lot during this game because of the size of the board to try to keep everything in frame. Now the farmer tokens are in place. Now with those farmer tokens, if a creature passes onto the same spot as one of the farmer tokens, the farmer's killed. They're out of the game. If there's a farmer token with your character following you along, if you even pass through a space with a monster, the farmer is killed and is gone. This won't end the game, but it'll keep you from getting them to the castle and having them turn over to provide an additional space. And those additional spaces are very helpful later in the game. Next card, A4. The adventure starts with farmers who could be brought into the castle, and again this explains that you can carry the farmers and goes over the rules of what I just explained to you. At first sunlight, the heroes receive a message. Old King Brander's willpower seems to have weakened with the passage of time, but there is said to be an herb growing in the mountain passes that can revive a person's life. Our task? The heroes must heal the king with the medicinal herb. To do that, they must find the witch. Only she knows the locations where the herb grows. The witch is hiding behind one of the fog tokens. One of our things that we need to do to win this game is to find this magical herb to help heal the king. So first we're going to have to find the witch, and then we're going to have to get the herb back to the king. Next we have our 5th A card and our last one. And this explains that whenever we turn over a fog space that shows the witch's brew, then we'll actually draw the witch's card that's one of these, except it's only red once we find that token with the witch on it. And then it also goes on to explain that there are a couple of fog tokens that have actual monsters or gores under them that appear if you turn them over and are on that space. Now it's time to decide when the Runestone's legend card comes into play. One player rolls one of the hero dice. Now over on the legend track, you'll see that there's dice pips, and I'll zoom in to show you what that is. So I'm going to roll one die, and whatever that number is, I'll zoom into the legend track to show you where we're going to put the Runestone legend card. And we roll one die, and we got a 1. Now you can see on the legend track we have the little die symbol. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 is up there at H at the very top of the screen. And when you roll that die, when I rolled a 1, so that's going to be B for me, that means that this legendary runestone card, you see this arrow right here, it's going to go next to the board pointing to space B, which means when the narrator token lands on B, this card will be turned over and read. Now the merchants that I was talking about with the merchant symbol on the equipment board where you can buy strength points and additional articles, you'll see the merchant symbol here on 18. There's one over here on 71 and one up here at 57. Those are the 3 locations with merchants where you can buy the items and strength points. Continuing on this card, each hero starts with 2 strength points and the group gets 5 gold and 2 wine skins, and I'll decide how to distribute that amongst the players. Then the hero with the lowest rank, which is rank 7, the dwarf, will begin the game. First, let's distribute those items and adjust strength points. I've decided to give 1 gold to Thorn, 1 of the wine skins to Chada, and then gave her 4 of the gold because I'm going to use her as my scout. Now also I want to show you these wine skins. Now when you do a move action, you can use the wine skin to move 1 space without moving your token on the time track. And it can be used twice. This is the first time, then you turn it over and it's kind of half drained to show you that you've used it once already. And then you can use it a second time. You can split that up and use it over 2 different times that you move, or you can just drink it all at once to move 2 spaces without using anything on the hour track or the time track. And I've bumped everybody's strength up to 2 as it's specified on that card, and I gave the final wine skin to the dwarf to have. And I did that because he starts off pretty high up in the north. I want him to be able to catch up with the rest of us if necessary. I know that was a lot to absorb, but we're all set up. I know I went over a lot of rules briefly. I'm going to go over them again each of the first time, maybe more than one time, but especially the first time they come up during gameplay. I'll talk about them in better detail to explain what's going on. Other than that, we're all set up and ready to go. I appreciate you joining me for this intro and setup, and I'm ready to start our first day in Legend 2 of the Legends of Andor.